Let's dive into our first topic of the day after a quick word from FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, guys. Last night's Game 5 delivered highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. And if you want to get in on the action, there's never been a better time to do so than right now on FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're new to FanDuel, right now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com/UCSS and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we're going to start with the Cleveland Browns and start with something that actually happened on UCSS last week. I was waiting to do this topic until we had Tyvis and G. Bush back in here because I think they could offer some unique insight into the discussion we're about to have. But I'm going to play you a sound.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Mike doesn't think I could offer unique insight into
it.
Well, you never dove into an NFL playbook like these two
as far
have.
as you know.
So that is true. You know what, Bull? I should apologize. If you have dug into an NFL playbook, then you are uniquely qualified for this conversation too. But last Thursday, we had Jory Epstein on the show from Yahoo. She had spent 2 days in Berea covering the Browns. Then she wrote her column over the weekend. Charles Robinson, who also is a national NFL writer, wrote a column on the Browns quarterback job. I want to play you a soundbite from Jory and then read you some excerpts from the two articles because they both mentioned something in different ways that we hadn't heard prior to this information. Jory said this first on Thursday, and I don't want to say we glossed over it, but we didn't really ask any follow-ups to it. I didn't really make anything of it until I read more into the article she wrote and Charles wrote. But this is a 50-second clip from Jory Epstein when she joined us last week, and then I'll read you guys the clips from Charles Robinson and Jory's article. This was Jory on UCSS last week.
But the guys who need the most work right now are the rookies, and that's not a knock on them. That's because they don't have pro experience. And then I would even say that Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders arrive at the NFL with pretty different levels of foundations, not because of, this is not about where they can go. This is about where they can come from. And where they came from is Dillon Gabriel played for 3 schools, all sorts of offenses. It really had a much wider range of foundation, in my opinion, in terms of the offenses he was exposed to. And so I think he is a little bit ahead of Shedeur Sanders, and I think that's reflected in who's getting these snaps. So I would say, to answer your question, now that we have that context, the reason Shedeur Sanders is not getting first-team reps is because it's going to take a little bit of time before operationally and from a cadence standpoint and from a playbook standpoint, he is ready to excel then. And they're not trying to put him in a situation where it's just like obvious how unready he is for that.
So that was Jory Epstein. And then over the weekend, Charles Robinson wrote an article. The headline of the article was this: Shedeur Sanders can win the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback job. Here's how, from inside the building. And then he went on and wrote this, and you'll see it on your screen. Physically, Sanders can start in the NFL right now. Despite all the talk about the Colorado Buffaloes offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur utilizing a pro-style scheme that supposedly made Sanders more, quote, pro-ready than some other quarterbacks, I don't think that is proven to be the case. Not only is Sanders going to be mentally swimming with the complexity of an NFL offense, there's a lot of work to do with the basic terminology and verbiage used by Stefanski's scheme. In short, I don't believe Shurmur's Colorado offense had as much NFL overlap in either of those departments, which means that Sanders is going to have to learn from the ground up when it comes to something as simple as being able to memorize and spit out all the verbiage of an NFL play inside the huddle. That's hardly an unusual problem when it comes to a rookie quarterback, but it's a much bigger challenge when you weren't really operating a complex offense in college or calling complicated plays or protections in a manner that had a lot of NFL overlap. Sanders has to learn the Browns offense and then learn how to speak it and quickly so that he can get to the line of scrimmage and make his pre-snap reads. That was Charles Robinson.
So Mike, when you sent the rundown to us.
Yes. Jory's quote real quick before we do that.
All right, go ahead.
And then Jory, who wrote an article on the Browns quarterback battle, we heard what she said about Shedeur in the clip. She wrote more about Dillon Gabriel and his perspective in terms of picking up the offense. She said, quote, Gabriel's acclamation has impressed the Browns deeply. His high-level processing and 6-year college foundation has readied him to be treated in some ways basically like a veteran, Andrew Berry said. Reese praised Gabriel as a player who you don't ever need really to correct him twice. The first team reps he received in minicamp reflected his grasp with a Wednesday red zone needle threaded to receiver Jalen Gill in the back of the end zone, the type of anticipation the Browns want to see from the room. She went on to call his processing like a machine.
All right, now first of all, most of what was said by both of them, outside of the Andrew Berry quote at the end on Dillon Gabriel, the rest of it is just speculation. None of it is based on inside information. You know, Charles Robinson saying, well, Shedeur has a lot to pick up off the field. He may. I don't know. I have no idea how much he needs to pick up. I don't know him personally. I'm not in the locker room. I have no clue. But he's just giving an opinion. He's not stating that as a fact. He said, in fact, he says in his, I mean, how would he know it is a fact? And he's not even citing, he's not like sources tell me or anything like that. He's just giving an opinion that a lot of people thought that Shedeur's offense made him more NFL ready. And his thought is, not so fast. That offense didn't necessarily make him NFL ready. He's not even saying that he's not NFL ready. In fact, he did say he thinks he's physically ready. He's speculating he might not be. And I think a lot of the speculation of people saying, well, maybe he's not ready behind the scenes, which may or may not be true. I think a lot of that's being said, guys, because he's not getting first-team reps. Exactly. Now, that might mean nothing, but I think that's why people are speculating that maybe he's got further to go in terms of that type of stuff. But it's all just speculation.
Well, we talked about it last week. I said that could be that to me is the only reason why he ain't getting first-team reps. Because, like I said, when you turn the tape on, it's clear as day. Anybody that see it is clear as day from him throwing the ball. But if it is, the only thing that could possibly be holding him back would be the playbook and how he's able to process the playbook. I wouldn't necessarily say on the field he's slow processing because, as you can see, whether he know everything or not, he still is going to the right spot with the football. And everybody is saying, well, this is a guy that's not even taking check downs. He's throwing 20 yards down the field on a dig route. So it's not the processing of all of that. He when the ball is snapped, when he's on the field, he understands everything. Now, the verbiage and the terminology, I give you that. That could be the thing. If you go all the way back to what the Giants was talking about, that was the issue in the big Giants meeting, is that he didn't know the terminology and the verbiage that they were using. I told you when I came out, I had that exact same problem. I didn't say it the same way. My college said it a certain way. The NFL said it a different way. And I was confused of the two because I'm so used to saying it my way. So for him, that's a learning curve. The more he's around it, the more he does it, the more he says it, obviously he's going to pick up on it. But still, even with all that said, I still think he still deserved the rep with the ones because, like I said, even Charles Davis said at the beginning of his quote, physically, Charles Robinson at the beginning of his quote, he physically looks ready. So even if he doesn't understand the terminology, and I understand Kevin Stefanski coming out and saying, oh yeah, we have a certain way that we're doing things. Don't look into the reps and all of those things. And if him running with the fours is his way of slowing the pace down extremely so he can try to get in and out the huddle and all those things, okay, cool. But at the end of the day, I still need to see him with the ones to see what he look like. Give him a wristband or something like that. Let him go out there, read it off the thing, and just go out there and let him throw the ball with the ones. Because at the end of the day, you got from now until game one to get him up to speed on the terminology. That's something that could be fixed. But as far as him getting reps with ones and getting chemistry with people, that's not something you could just throw out there at the last minute and think he's just going to pick it up. So to me, that's why it's like at some point you need to put him with the ones, especially if he's physically ready for the part. Because I can tell you every other quarterback in this draft, outside of maybe Dillon Gabriel apparently, I think they all going to struggle a little bit with the terminology because it's different. Unless your OC was under this head coach or OC in the NFL, the terminology is going to be different. So at that point, to me, that's still bogus. That's still not a good reason to why he hasn't gotten one rep. Right. Personal opinion.
That you was cooking right there, bro. You said a lot
Thank
of
you.
stuff. I'm
I
like,
try to
dang,
keep it real.
You was cooking right there, bro. I was like, dang, bro, you sound like me. That's so crazy. First and foremost, can we bring up the quote? Can we the one where she says with the pinpoint accuracy, throwing the football and stuff like that?
You want the one that Jory said about Dillon Gabriel?
Yeah.
Correct. You can take it right here, Steve.
So here's the problem. So let me go to the very end of that. Wednesday red zone, needle threaded to receiver Jalen Gill in the back of the end zone. That type of anticipation the Browns want to see from the room. The problem with the coverage and the problem with people got is when you listen, and I'm going to name names, when you listen to Mary Kay, when you listen to Tony Grossi, when you listen to Jason Lloyd, when you listen to these people write this, and that's their opinion, right? And there's never that level of detail when Shedeur Sanders does something. When he throws a bomb and he's wide open, touchdown. When he threaded that needle right there, when he caught it in the back of the end zone, like this, touchdown. With that was.
In fairness, I don't know. I can't speak to the others. I'll say Jason's not writing that kind of detail about Dillon Gabriel either.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But we haven't that level of detail. Tony Grossi say, "Oh, yeah, I thought Dillon Gabriel. He spins it the best. He throws the most tight spiral." Listen, I'm gonna just keep it real with you. When he caught that ball in the back of the end zone, there was actually people on Twitter talking about whether the foot was in or not.
Talking about you talking about Shedeur?
Yes.
They said it was an incompletion.
This is the problem.
But that has nothing to do with Shedeur.
That ain't got nothing to do with it. And people get upset because you're sitting here with that crazy, like it ain't crazy, it's a nice throw. It just seems to be that everything Shedeur Sanders does is minimized, right? Let me continue to give it to you right here. People keep telling me that Kenny Pickett is a starter. He's going to start. Let me ask y'all a question. Put it in the chat. Where are the Kenny Pickett highlights?
I don't think that. To me, that doesn't matter. I wouldn't start Kenny Pickett.
Now let's go bring him back.
Hold on, I got one for you. I had somebody tell me that Shedeur he was a 5th round pick, so they treat him accordingly. And I said, Kenny Pickett got traded for a 5th round pick, so he should be treated accordingly. And we gonna call a spade a spade.
Every person I ask, tell me 3 concrete traits why Kenny Pickett is ahead of anybody at camp. They can't give you anything.
I don't think most people think Kenny Pickett's going to start. I know there's a few.
Jason
all the beat reporters, all of them.
I don't think they all think he's going to start.
Mary Kay has said it from Jump Street. Jason Lloyd says
yes.
And Tony, I think that's it.
Well, Jason Lloyd doesn't think he should start.
No,
he said he is.
He will start.
He will
based
start.
On the information he's getting.
But my thing is, so I'm looking at.
Let's clear. Wait a minute. Let's clear Jason's name. Jason said that Joe Flacco looks the best.
He says Flacco looks the best.
So which is obvious. I think everybody knows.
So let's clear Jason's name.
And I'm not specifically talking about Jason Lloyd, right? I'm specifically talking about there's this blind thing where it's Kenny Pickett. And I'm like, okay, well, if you look at the statistics.
Not from fans.
If you look at the statistics of the way, like, they're putting it out there, he has almost the worst completion percentage. He's throwing no touchdowns. And nobody at camp has said, man, all right, that Kenny Pickett is slinging a rock, Tyvis.
Right.
Nobody.
I'm going to upset everybody again because, once again, I'm going to say I don't care about the statistics.
Okay, that's fine.
I've been consistent with that.
That's fair.
Good or bad. I don't care who has. I want to know from guys like Tyvis, from guys like you, if you were there, who looks the best to me. I don't care what their stats were. And
I have to go to see
it. From the people that are there, the people that I trust, like Zach Jackson and Jason, they've said for the most part consistently that Joe Flacco has looked the best.
That's what they said.
So if we're trying to win, if that's the goal, and I understand sometimes there's mixed goals, but if we're trying to win, it seems pretty obvious Joe Flacco should be the starter. If it's about an eye on the future, from what I've heard from people that have been there, Shedeur Sanders has looked better than Gabriel. Although Gabriel's looked good too, and that's good. It's almost like our entire fan base wants Shedeur to look good. Half of our fan base, maybe not half, whatever percentage, doesn't matter. That some of our fan base wants Shedeur to look good and Gabriel to look like crap, and the other part of the fan base wants Gabriel to look good and Shedeur to look like crap, and that's idiotic.
I want them both to look good.
They have both looked good from the people that I trust that have been there. Well, I don't really, honestly, who's looked better at this point? Probably Shedeur from what I've heard, but I don't know how much it matters at this point, right? This is just a step in the process. And so here's the things I know that you tell me if you disagree. This is what I believe I know. A few things about this whole situation. There is very little honesty when it comes to Shedeur Sanders either way. we have like politics. Everybody's taking their camps, and neither side is being fair. I feel like I'm in the middle trying to keep and I've been
I'm trying to be in the
killed by
middle, too.
people, even though I don't think I've said a bad word about Shedeur Sanders, but I've been killed as if I'm a hater because I feel like one of the few people that's being honest about the situation. The people in the Sanders camp and the people in the anti-Sanders camp, both sides are absolutely ridiculous. On this side, you can't critique Shedeur Sanders. If I say the stats don't matter for everybody, that's turned into a knock of Sanders, which is absurd. And the people on the other side are obsessed with he's a fifth-round pick, pick, which is a disingenuous thing to say, even though it's factually correct. And you know it's disingenuous.
If you have the people who are covering the team that consistently, first of all, their voices are bigger than the regular people. Let's be clear. They have thousands of followers.
But that doesn't mean that the people here aren't wrong too.
But here's what I'm saying though. You got to look at it from the perspective of this. So when you, like a lot of people's perspective is, you guys come on in, be quiet, don't say nothing. They're looking around like, I mean, I don't know you like that. What do you mean?
What do you mean? I don't know.
Like there's a perception of that Shedeur Sanders, his fan base or whatever this fan base is, they should come in, take people's word for it. Say whatever and toe the company line and sit down.
I don't agree with that.
So I don't either. But what I'm saying is, what happens is when you get a person who you feel has been slandered, they're going to be sensitive.
Yeah.
I understand that. I think generally, and I can't speak for everybody. Listen, in fact, I referenced you this morning on my podcast because
shout out to G.
Something you said a few weeks ago in that podcast you did that we talked about. You said something that at the time I didn't really agree with, and I've kind of changed my mind after a couple of weeks, that there is this frustration from people to having to talk about Shedeur Sanders, which I didn't really see in the beginning, and I think it's the case. I think it ties into this, well, he's a fifth-round pick stuff. And I think it's all tied together, and I agree with you that if you're in the media in Cleveland, and you're sick of talking about Shedeur Sanders, you're in the wrong business.
This is what we do.
You're in the wrong. This is great. If nothing else, this is great for conversation.
The best thing that's
so
ever
I don't know
happened
why
to
anybody
Cleveland
would be
this summer.
sick of having a conversation, and that frustration could lead to some negative talk. I will admit, when Tim Tebow came in the league, and this is different because we weren't covering him; he wasn't in Cleveland. I was sick of hearing about Tim Tebow, and it colored my opinions of him, and I became more negative about him because I was sick of hearing about it. Now, and that, as I think back about it, that was unfair. Now, he wasn't playing in our town where we were talking about him very often, so it's a little different, but it was unfair of me to spin negatively about, I didn't do it purposely, it wasn't an agenda I had, but I think looking back, I was even a little extra negative about Tim Tebow because I'm sick of all his fans doing that. And the difference here is we're covering Shedeur Sanders. He's in our community. He's part of this team, part of this town. I don't go in with negative feelings about Shedeur Sanders like I did, frankly, with Tim Tebow because I didn't think Tim Tebow was any good at playing in the NFL. But I will say that it is unfair to be in a place where, and I'm not saying there aren't people in the media that have agendas. Of course there are. I think by and large most people don't, but I think there are some people who do. But I think it's an unfair situation where if you say anything that is looked at as a negative about a player, that you're a hater. That's not fair.
Yes,
and that's happening too quickly.
I wouldn't call it hate. It's just it's being critical. Like I'm telling you the same thing. Bottom line to this whole Shedeur situation with what Charles Robinson and Jory said. If a big if what they saying are true, and he's struggling with terminology and playbook.
Let me just clear. I don't think either of them really said he was struggling with terminology.
That's
Jory
what it
did when she was
they're
out.
alluding.
Okay,
that's what
right.
they're alluding to. Is that it's a mental thing. He's not picking up the game, the playbook fast,
which is common amongst young players.
So what I will say is, if that is true, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with everybody, they will start Dillon Gabriel over him because at the end of the day, they have to be able to trust the guy on the field to at least, at the worst, be able to know what's going on and be able to know their responsibility. That is like, you can't touch the field. If you don't know what's going on and you don't know what they're doing, you cannot go on the field, because then that leads to me as a coach being fired. So if he does it, if he does not know the terminology, he cannot communicate and get guys in and out of the huddle, he will not play until he's able to do that. Flat out.
But don't you think he will be by the time? Even if
what's going to happen? Like I said, if it came to a situation where he had to play, they gonna put the wristband.
Sure,
100%.
Yeah.
And he just gonna have to read the wrist, which is fine. If that's the case, if that's what he got to do as a rookie, that's fine. It's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, he's got to spend, just like Dillon Gabriel, got to spend the next 6 weeks getting ready.
If the talent is there, if it's not a physical thing, and he's able to dissect defenses and read and know where to go at the ball, you got to play the kid.
I like when on one article I said this too. I read both articles, and what he said was, he might be getting first team reps, but he said something that was very, very important for people to get. When he get out there in these scrimmages or in these preseason games, don't think if he light it up, that ain't gonna weigh more than what we talking about right here. All bets are off. Because here's my thing. I want to be a conspiracy theorist. I stand on what I said from Jump Street. I think they took Dillon Gabriel in the third round, so they did not have to be in the Shedeur Sanders business. I really believe that they were planning on having Dillon Gabriel, so that means that we already spent a high capital pick on a quarterback, so that we don't have to hear, what about Shedeur? What about Shedeur? You want to visit him? You're going to take him off the board. And I believe that the higher up said after a certain period of time, oh no, we're drafting him. And they made the decision to draft him. And
once the great Donald Trump said Shedeur Sanders ain't being drafted, he made a phone call.
Check your definition of great there.
Well, to some people.
Now, my thing is, they never planned on taking him. The problem is, like Ocho Cinco said, you got somebody that has endeared himself to the locker room. And guess what? The difference between him and Tim Tebow, the biggest one, is he can play. He can throw the ball. Tim Tebow running around being an H-back. He can throw the ball. And he's done everything he needs to do. He ain't saying nothing. He ain't rocking the boat. He ain't mad about them reps. He ain't mad about none of that. All the people out there want to see is this, like Tyvis said earlier. We want to see what he can do with Jerry Jeudy.
That's it.
I want to see what he can do with David Njoku. I want to see him with Junkins. I want to see him with the first running backs. If you are cooking, if you are beating down the doors with the 3s and 4s, guess what? You deserve more. That was a bar. It rhymed. It was cold. Let me give you this too. If you are playing with the ones that ain't making no noise,
then that's
what we talking about. Because that's my point.
All in the bud.
They done had Joe Flacco chilling some days on ice.
And he still couldn't get around with the ones.
And Kenny Pickett is up here with, I ain't seen a throw. And look, name me the reporter that then started an article this OTA season that says, boy,
Mary Kay Cabot.
Boy, that Kenny Pickett, man, the way he throw the ball, the touch, the command. Hey, people in the locker room love him. We've heard none of that. We've seen
there's
no
one
stats.
person in media doing that. Literally one. Friend of the show, Aditi Kinkawala.
There you go.
That's it. She was on Ken and Lima.
She's loved Kenny Pickett.
She was on Ken and Lima this morning.
There it is.
For Kenny.
She has been a big Kenny Pickett fan.
I do have one. I'm asking you one question, Bull, then you can go. Tyvis addressed the learning curve portion of going from college to the pros.
Bring that back. Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious from your perspective, someone who went from a high school playbook to a college playbook. You played both sides of the ball. What is the learning curve, especially at the? I know you didn't play quarterback, but when you go from
Thanks for
one
clarifying,
level,
Mike, because we all thought that G. Bush played quarterback.
I just want to make sure anyone listen.
I'm
We
sure
got
a lot of
some
our
new viewers.
fans thought G. Bush played quarterback.
We got a lot of new viewers.
The lefty.
They may think it's Byron Leftwich for all we know. So, G, but seriously, what is that learning curve when you go from one level of competition to that highest of high level?
So, I used to play at Camp McKinley. Coach Tom McDaniels is a big-time quarterback coach. His son, Ben McDaniels, and obviously Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, their family knows a little something about quarterback play. And when I was doing play-by-play at Camp McKinley, I had an opportunity to talk to Coach McDaniels about the thoughts and what is going on with quarterbacks. And I'm going to just be honest, the most difficult thing in the world is to go from stage to stage and be a quarterback, because it takes you an opportunity. You do have to know the verbiage. When you talk about right, left, scoop, 36 banana, Y cross, R trade on one, you like, what? I got to say this in the shot, in the time clock is coming down.
And make sure that they all got what you just said.
And then you got to look at the defense and being like, oh, well, now I got to make line protections.
No, you say that in the call. You say, can the protection, Zen, Y, banana, split, X, all that. And then it's a long play. And then everybody got to know that when you get up there, it's 2 calls being called. And you got to be able to look at that defense and be like, all right, can the first play, we go into the second play. And everybody got to know exactly what's going on, including yourself.
And still reading your landmarks, trying to figure out what the linebacker is doing, identifying the mic, where's the safety pre-snap? Oh, he just jumped from too deep to 3. Just cover 3, this man. And it's a blitzer coming off and you got to know if it's a hot, or if your running back can pick it up. So all of these things, and it's going like this.
Yes, and the biggest difference between the NFL and college is in college, you'll line up, you see it all the time. They'll go fast, they'll get on the ball, they'll see what the defense is, and then everybody will look to the sideline.
Just like this. They'll be up there like this.
The OC will be standing there, and they all look, and he'll see what they in. He'll give them the call, so it's easy. To where the NFL, that's not the case. They're not doing that. I'm gonna give you 2 calls, you make the right call, and that's what it is.
That's that Braxton Miller playbook.
Yeah. Again, I think
everybody look over.
I don't take what from the way I read it. Since they're speculating, I'm going to speculate too. The way I read what Charles Robinson and Jory Epstein are saying is not that Shedeur Sanders is behind in terms of picking up the verbiage. It's that Gabriel is ahead.
Well, I mean, the man played 6 years.
It sounds like Shedeur is kind of at a normal. I mean, I just think all rookies, as you said, it takes time to learn the verbiage, and that maybe Dillon Gabriel, because he was in college for 6 years and played in 3 different systems, that he might be a little quicker than the average person.
He's probably heard it.
Great.
He's heard it before. Like if Kevin comes in there and gives him the playbook and says some things, he'd be like, "We ran that at UCF, or we ran that at Oklahoma, or last year we ran that at Oregon." He's got more things that he's had to move from 3 different teams, so he had to pick up a whole new playbook. Right. It's not foreign to him. Not saying Shedeur hasn't from Jackson State to Colorado, but it's just a bigger difference.
And it's tough. It's tough. Even when you get Tyvus, you know this. Say you get to college and you getting around and you saying like, okay, my job, I'm trying to beat this dude out. Mm-hmm. But the dude in front of you is senior. I can name him, Mike Fox and Drew Dole match. I was like, man, listen, these dudes. They would give us the plays. I'm like, how do they know all these plays? Because back then they used to say you got to call out everything. We gonna write. They would get on the board, write out the whole defense, know what everybody was doing.
Yeah, I hated
and
that.
I hated that. I'm like, bro, this is the reason I got redshirted. But I made it tough for him. I said, y'all know all that, but G. Bush makes plays.
At the end of the day, they will find a way for you to get on that field.
I make plays, and if I'm gonna make a play, I'm gonna celebrate. Then I'm gonna run because you don't want to. But I'm gonna get that off. And they say, you know what? I ain't seen this many production points ever here. I was like, yeah, the coach, at some point in time, they're going to say, it's what you do when them lights is on. And that part you cannot coach. You cannot coach.
That's literally how DTR got whatchamacallit traded a couple of years ago. DTR in that preseason, it was undeniable. Like, DTR looked way better than Josh Dobbs.
But I think that shows also that preseason doesn't tell the whole story.
For sure.
You're right, for sure.
That's why I said the joint
levels.
It's
levels.
Right.
He got a lot to get to. It's sections and sections. I will say this. He started off as a long shot. I think that he's closed the gap.
Who?
Shedeur Sanders.
Oh.
He started off as an extreme long gap. Long shot.
Yeah.
I think he's tremendously closed the gap between him and the other 3 quarterbacks because of the plays that he's making.
I think the bottom line in this conversation, in my opinion, I think if you're a Browns fan and you've been searching for a quarterback forever, again, I don't know if either of these rookies is ever going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. We have no idea. I think there's just so much you can learn in mini camps and OTAs. But so far, I think you got to feel good about what both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have done to this point. I think the little we can get out of it or know, because we're not in the locker room, we don't know how they're learning or how hard they're working or any of that stuff. We don't have access to that information. But the information we have access to, I think it's a major positive for both guys. I don't think either one could really be doing much better than they are at this point, at least publicly. That we know of.
I like the fact that Dillon has come in, because everybody was like, when they selected him, everybody was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And
Fight back. I like it, Dillon.
And I like the fact that he don't have to deal with all the pressure. He just going out there. He went from Zach Jackson telling me he didn't look like an NFL quarterback at all to actually like making some good passes and stuff. So to me, they both fighting different battles.
That's right.
And I just want one of them to hit.
That's right.
At the end of the day, if one of them make it, I'm happy.
There's been a lot of years where we had to start a quarterback for the Browns because they all stunk and
Cody
you just had to
Kessler.
pick one, right? A lot. Cody Kessler, certainly.
Deshaun Kaiser.
Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, the list goes on and
There's
on.
a long list of quarterbacks.
If at some point this season, because I'm convinced Joe Flacco's going to start. I know maybe I'm in the minority, but whatever. If at some point this season, it's hard to decide between Gabriel and Sanders who should start because they both look good, that's a good problem to have.